Hi, I'm Jayson Manship, host of Authentic and Agentic, presented by TechPoint. Every week on this show, we break down what's happening in AI and what it means for how we work, lead, and live. Join me for a human-focused conversation that keeps you ahead of the curve. This is the Authentic and Agentic podcast on the IBJ Media Podcast Network. AI is changing how work gets done, and organizations across Indiana are figuring out what comes next. TechPoint's Community Connect brings together employers, higher education leaders, and emerging talent to explore how AI is reshaping the workforce and creating new opportunities for innovation. Join us July 24th for conversations, working sessions, and networking focused on the future of work. Register at techpoint.org/communityconnect. AI is transforming every industry, and Indiana Wesleyan University is preparing professionals to lead that change. IWU offers a Master of Science in AI and Data Analytics, a graduate certificate in AI Business Innovation, and an Applied AI Analytics concentration, all designed for working adults. Flexible, online, Christ-centered, and grounded in biblical ethics. Discover how IWU can help you find the way forward. Visit indwes.edu. Hey friends, Jayson Manship here from the Authentic and Agentic podcast here on the IBJ. I am excited to talk to you today. One of the things I get a lot of questions about is the models, right? Which one should I choose? Which tool should I use when it comes to AI? And I tend to, on this show, talk about the tools a lot in the news segment. And then I have done a few different episodes where I have shown you how I use some of these tools. Well, today I'm going to do something a little different, and I'm going to kind of entwine the news with talking through each of these tools. I think it's kind of time. I'm recording this on July 15th. It's halfway through the year, and I think people are asking, which tool should I use? What's it look like? It's a space race. And I just want to spend some time on it. And so 6 tools that everybody's asking me about: ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, also known as SpaceX, Microsoft's Copilot, and Perplexity. And so what I want to do is compare all these and talk about what we're seeing kind of on the open market. So a few notes. I pulled up some reports from Ella Marina, which is arena.ai. There's a report from Artificial Analysis. There's a report from SWE Bench, Stanford's AI Index, Menlo Ventures, and then A16Z, Mark Andreessen's group, did an enterprise survey also. And so we're pulling data from all those various places, and we're going to talk about first whether we can even trust some of those leaderboards, because there's some controversy about that, right? There's bias. And then we're going to dig in. So I think it's important to note this. Timing matters, right? And so this is probably one of the wildest 5-week periods in AI, probably the history of AI. So we had back in early June, Anthropic trying to ship Claude Fable 5, right? Which was the one that the Pentagon shut down, and there was this whole argument about now active, now being used. Elon just did XAI, which is merged with SpaceX. So this is now Grok 4.5 in early July. This was like a week ago, probably. So they're stepping up their AI game with their $1.2 trillion cash infusion, or valuation, I should say. OpenAI just shipped to compete GPT 5.6, and it's now become the default brain inside of Microsoft Copilot. And Gemini, Google's product, 3.5 Pro, is expected to launch, I think, in 2 days. And so this is everything we're talking about today is a snapshot of time, mid-year 2026, where it's called the leapfrog war. They keep going back and forth and trying to figure out who's best and what use case. And so let's dig into it. So first, let's start with ChatGPT. That's the one I started with. It's the incumbent. I think it's the giant. It's the big one. So 5.6 is its current flagship. It has multiple different versions, Sol, Terra, and Luna. And those are, as you think about these models, those are based on kind of pricing metrics, right? So the cheaper options are going to be faster, or they're just like fast and cheap. They're lower crunch time, lower thinking. And so Luna, in the case of ChatGPT 5.6, is that. These folks have 1 billion monthly users as of June. This is the fastest app ever to reach 1 billion people, and they have 900 million weekly active users. Just for context, ChatGPT currently has about 77% of the consumer chatbot market. So it's kind of like Google, Yahoo back in the day, right? When everybody was like, let's go search for something. And then they called it, let's go Google something. ChatGPT is really running with that. A lot of it is because they have a free tier, and then B, they have their $8 Go tier, which they tested in India first. But it's just a relatively inexpensive way to get into it. And so that's kind of these are the big dogs, right? These are the folks that everyone's using. 77% of consumers are using. Let's go to Claude next. Claude is run by a company called Anthropic. I think this is like the quality coding group. So these are the folks that are pushing the model button to the point of literally getting pushed back from the federal government. Claude Fable 5 came out on June 9th officially. Active now, I've been using it. I've used it today. And so this is their, call it Mythos class. And so Claude's taken this approach of like classes of things, almost like Royal Caribbean's cruise ships, where like there's the small boats that go in like small ports, and then there's the mega boats that go in the open ocean, right? And that's what they're doing here with this. So their Mythos class is above Opus. So there's Opus 4.8. And then they also recently rolled out Sonnet 5. Sonnet 5 is the lower end fast cheap tier. Which lets you get more crunch for the dollar. So consumer share of Claude is pretty small, but growing rapidly. And I think, interestingly, it's growing in like the small business segment specifically, like people that are building a lot more with Claude. These folks just raised $65 billion on a $965 billion valuation. So, they are scaling quickly. They have the free tier. They have the $20 pro tier. If you've heard me talk on this program, I'll tell you that's the best $20 a month you can spend. It includes Claude Code. It includes Claude Co-Work, has Claude Design in it. So this is the one where you install it on your computer and you talk to it like your agent, your assistant, and it can actually take over files and change things and connect directly to your email and directly to your Drive and all these other features. And so I personally use Claude every single day. I started with ChatGPT. I still actively use ChatGPT, but Claude is my personal go-to. And we'll get into kind of the benchmarks and some of that stuff here in a bit. But in general, $20 a month at Claude, I think the best money you can spend if you're building with it. If you're just asking questions, I think ChatGPT continues to dominate the market. Gemini up next. Current model's 3.1. 3.5 is supposed to come out in a couple days. They have about 900 million users on the app and 2 billion touching AI over search. So the reason Google has such a high footprint is because Google, right? They have distribution nobody else can touch. You Google search things. When you're searching for something, they own the search market. Google also has all of these great services, many of which are free, like Gmail and Docs and Sheets and YouTube, right? Think about all those tools. And Gemini has exclusivity into all of those tools because Google built Gemini. Google owns all those things. So they too have free tiers and pro tiers and workspace tiers and all sorts of different ways you can interact with it. I find that most of the people that use Gemini are either all in on Google Workspace and their business is running on Google Workspace, or they are Android users, and it's kind of built into the core infrastructure of their phones and their life, and so they lean in there. Grok, which is XAI, now they're calling it SpaceX AI. This one's like the wild card, right? So in February, XAI merged with SpaceX and created a combined entity worth about $1.25 trillion. People said it was the largest merger ever. So on July 8th, Grok 4.5 shipped, and Elon calls it Opus class, but faster and cheaper. And I mean, to his credit, they do aggressively price this one. So this one is, I don't know, man. I use it in my Tesla. So my Tesla has Grok, and I use it when I'm driving. because it's just easy to hold down the button and talk to the car. And in general, it does a good job. I have never personally thought to sit down at my computer and build something with Grok. I just being transparent there, I just haven't. Partially because it feels like it's I've heard story after story of issues with like the dark cloud and like deep fakes and all sorts of other stuff. I don't know if that all comes through just the news channels, right? I mean, one of the struggles that Grok has is that they have a figurehead that's the most polarizing of all figureheads. And so if you love Elon, you love Elon. And I love what Elon builds. I can't speak to his personhood, but I love my Tesla car. I think it's amazing. I can't wait for the Optimus robots to start doing my laundry. But I think there's like a sentiment there with Grok where, the whole Twitter situation where he took over that. I think too much of my perspective on AI right now is about trust, and I'm just not entirely sure I trust Grok. I use it for like transactional things, but I don't know that I want to like deep dive invest in it. And maybe that'll change. I don't know. But that's just my 2 cents. State of the world right now. Microsoft Copilot is another one. This one's kind of interesting because it really leverages OpenAI's GPT 5.6 as its preferred model. And then it also uses Anthropic's Claude. So it's using other models to kind of connect the dots. And so this is less its own LLM and more conglomeration of things that use external sources. And what they're banking on is the distribution side, right? So Microsoft 365, Windows, all these sorts of things. And so 450 million seats, people that have Microsoft 365, Word, Excel, Teams, those sorts of things. But here's the one stat I pulled out as I was looking through this. Adoption's not very good. So distribution is not the same as love. This is the tagline I pulled out. Fewer than 4.5 of those seats actually pay for it. So very few of these seats that exist, they've got a huge distribution model because of the work that Microsoft has put together, but very few of them actually use Copilot. And I think that's probably true for most of us unless your company requires it. If your company says this is the only one you can use, then I think people are using it. But even then, I think they're finding that there are other more powerful models out there. And so people are tending to maybe choose some of the other models. Last up, I'm just going to choose this. It's funny because I actually thought this was like way down the line, Perplexity. And what I've found when I'm talking to folks in like speeches and presentations and stuff is that a lot of people use Perplexity. And these folks don't have their own frontier model. They're routing through GPT and Claude and Gemini. And what they're doing, though, is it's wrapping it up in like a citation-first search product. And so they're trying to be authoritative. They're trying to be unopinionated. They're trying to be trustworthy, right? And with that, they've got about 45 million monthly users. That's like 8% of the total chatbot market, which is at the time like bigger than Claude or Copilot on the consumer side, which is kind of wild. I did not know that. Now, the one thing I do really like about Perplexity, and I do use, although I use Atlas more, is these are the first people that launched a browser, a web browser. So October, November of 2025, somewhere in that range, they launched the Comet browser, and it's an agentic browser. So it does a couple things kind of cool. One, you talk to it just like you do your chat, but it uses the internet. It uses the web. It browses websites. It does things for you. But the second thing that they do is they've worked out a payment process with publishers. So they disclosed they had a $42.5 million revenue share pool, and it's an 80-20 in the publisher's favor. So in essence, when you interact with web pages or content that comes from the content of those articles, right? So if it's scraping my writing and converting that into facts that it's giving back to me, it's paying me for that. And so there's an interesting model here that these folks are working on that I think we may see continue to play out in the public lexicon as time goes on. But those are the six. Those are the six we're going to talk about. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, Microsoft Copilot, and Perplexity. Okay, so next up, I want to talk about the leaderboard. How do we know who these things are? There is a website I really enjoy called arena.ai. It used to be like Chatbot Arena maybe, and I think they call it LM Arena now. But this is just a famous leaderboard because it's a blind voting system. And so it's kind of like ELO rankings in chess, if you're familiar with that, where humans are picking the better ones, and then it's kind of through an anonymous process, and it's grading accordingly. And so this is really the largest live human preference test on AI. So it's got 7.3, 7.5 million votes and counting. And what it's doing is it's trying to assimilate and figure out which is the best tool, right? Which one gives the most honest answers? Which one's the most factual based? Like, just which one's the best in a performance review? And so there's a couple of stories here where there are skeptics because they're saying that this is like, gaming the system. And I won't go into the weeds on that because we don't have time to get into it today, but we can talk about this if you guys care about in the future. In general, though, there is, I think the deeper problem I have with a tool like this is that Arena answers the questions more so about preference than capability, right? So which one do you like better, A or B? So by voting, I'm rewarding confidence, I'm rewarding links, I'm rewarding formatting, right? And many times I can't reliably spot a hallucination. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't without digging deeper. And so if you ask me a question, do you like A or B? A lot of times my response is going to be, well, that one sounds better, right? But I don't know if it actually is better. And so I'm not entirely sure this tool is perfect. I think that the stories that exist out there about some of the folks that have tried to game the system are pushing on it, but I don't know enough to really give you context there. I will tell you though, for this podcast, I dug deeper, right? I looked at some other independent groups that are out there. So some, verification stuff, right? So can it fix real GitHub bugs? Is it memorizing just rote answers, or is it able to dig and give you context around some of that stuff? And so to me, I think the way we look at that is kind of as follows, right? So let's talk about raw intelligence. This is from the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index. This was published 2 days ago. So number one, just straight up raw intelligence, GPT-6 or GPT 5.6 is number one. Claude Opus is number two. And then Grok 4.5 is behind that. There's a few other GPT and Claude models and kind of mixed in there. But the top, here's why I think this is important. The top is a photo finish. So the gap between 1 and 5 is pretty negligible, which basically means that from a raw intelligence perspective, almost all of these are right there neck and neck with each other. GPT, Claude, Grok, Gemini, they're all just right there, which I think is interesting, right? Because I think that people ask me, like, which one's smarter? The quick answer is they're all smarter, at least smarter than me. And so I think it's a preference. I think it's which tool you like to use and which features you like to use, which is why I tend to gravitate towards Claude, because I like the features the best. And it's really kind of fitting for me there. Let's look at the human preference side. This is the LM Arena piece. This is the arena.ai. This is the one where you're voting. And in that model, Anthropic holds the top 5 slots. So, I mean, people love Anthropic. When given a quote unquote blind test, they choose Anthropic. So let's look at SWE Bench, which is going to analyze how it does code, how it's doing coding work. And in this one, again, Claude holds top 5 positions, just crushing everyone else basically. And then, OpenAI's Codex and GPT-5 are kind of below it. So just for context, Fable 5 comes at a score of 95%, and GPT is at 83%. So, it's definitely a big leap there. I personally have found that Claude Code is better for me than OpenAI's Codex, but they're all racing, right? This is the frog leap. This is where they're all trying to beat each other. Looking at the big picture context. So this is, sorry guys, I'm reading a lot of different notes and stats I've put in here. This is Stanford's AI index from 26. And here's a couple big picture stories I want to put in here. AI agents went from a 20% success rate on real world test benchmarks to 77% in 1 year. I think that's the story. That a year ago, you'd ask it to do something and it had a 1 in 5 success rate. Now it has a 77% success rate. Imagine as that continues to shrink and it just does everything correctly the first time. Becomes more reliable, becomes more usable, becomes more kind of core built into what we do. Another interesting fact from Stanford AI is the U.S.-China frontier gap has diminished. And I talked a little bit about this. So the U.S. is spending hundreds of billions of dollars building frontier models. And China's, in many cases, just replicating those for pennies on the dollar. And the gap, the distance between America's supremacy and China behind it is only 2.7%, within the margin of error, basically. And so I think that's really interesting. I think that's probably something that we need to be continuing to look at, both in this group and as a society, as a country, as a leadership. Everybody's talking about AI, but very few are actually executing. If your team is still experimenting with Copilot, you're already behind. Axia Technology Partners turns Microsoft AI into real business outcomes, and fast. Not prompts, not pilots. This is production-grade AI embedded into your workflows. As a Microsoft certified AI solutions provider, Axia TP delivers Microsoft E7, the full stack of security, identity, and AI, implemented, governed, and scaled. While others are testing ideas, Axia TP's clients are reducing costs, automating operations, and moving faster than their competitors. This isn't about trying AI, it's about operationalizing it, and now. If you're serious about results, not experiments, visit Axia Technology Partners and start executing. Visit www.axiatp.com. That's AXIATP.com to learn more. Welcome back, and thank you again to the sponsors that make this show happen. Couldn't do it without them, so thank you so much. I promised on the other side of the break that we would talk about the best tool for each job, so let's dig right into that. And this is where my opinions come in. I've gone through a lot of this benchmarking and looked at these different pieces, but some of this I think is like probably universally accepted at least, and some of it's maybe a little nuanced. But let me talk to you about the why behind the what as we go. So first up, coding. If you're building stuff right now, to me, Claude wins, period, full stop. I think this is probably the most lopsided category. If you look at any of the data from any of the tools, it will tell you this. And practically, as someone who codes every day using AI, I 100% believe it. And so I would tell you the same. Blind taste test. Claude wins on coding. I think OpenAI's Codex is getting better. I think they're getting closer on benchmarks, and it's a little cheaper because you can get into it on a lower plan for ChatGPT. But man, I think Claude just runs away with this one. Research and search in general. There's a nuance to this. I think the answer here is probably Perplexity. Because remember, Perplexity isn't its own entire frontier model. It's using all these other tools also. And so for me, if I'm trying to research something and I want kind of unbiasedness, for example, this conversation, I am looking at Perplexity as a starting point. They have more verifiable sources. They source stuff better. They cite stuff better. That's where I'd go, Perplexity. Now, all that said, I think if I were doing a very long kind of structured executive type report, I still tend to use ChatGPT Deep Research. This is a toggle that you turn on when you're inside of ChatGPT. And so ChatGPT Deep Research, I think, is proven for me at least better at pulling together large, complicated, complex responses. It definitely has weaker sourcing. It's definitely not as good as Perplexity in documenting and sourcing itself, but I find it to be valuable. Hold on, click the wrong button 1 second. Okay, writing and creative. I personally tend to use Claude day to day for helping me write something that someone actually wrote, quote unquote. But ChatGPT is so good at this. I think this is why people love it so much. I think it's why it has such an adoption rate, because you just ask it to clean up your email or help you say something better, It's fast, it's easy, it does a good job. I think all of them work fine here. I don't know that I'd actually pick a winner in this category. I probably personally rotate between Claude and ChatGPT, but honestly, I don't know that there's a clear winner in the writing and creative side. Office and productivity, I think this 100% depends on which office suite you live in. Right? Do not switch your office suite for AI. If you are a Microsoft company, use Copilot. If you are a Google company, use Gemini. But that's all, folks. I don't think there's much more to say there. I think they do just fine in those categories and processes. If you're trying to analyze PDF files and you're trying to do work, right? Like open this doc and do this thing and make this happen, or you're trying to get your AI to take over a web browser and do some stuff, I think I'd probably fall back to Claude. But in terms of like actually interactive inside of Google Docs, stay in Gemini, or Word, stay in Copilot. Here's another one that I think is probably uncontested. This is probably with code, one of the other ones that's like the real time and news. And the clear winner here, I think, is Grok. Now, this is part of the reason I don't use Grok all that often. So I spent 10 years in news and have taken a bit of a news hiatus since then. And so I'm less concerned about what's breaking, what's happening. I mean, Grok has Twitter data, like direct access, and they've built a literal moat around it. And so they have market sentiment and breaking stories and what are people saying like literally right this instant. And so Grok is going to win this battle. And in the comparisons, the actual physical comparisons here, Grok scores a 94% and ChatGPT is only an 80 in second place. And so Grok is the clear winner here. That said, there are some bias risks, right? I mean, anything Musk adjacent, or there's been conversations around like if he or his people are controlling stuff. And then they've had some deep fake issues as well. And they do allow some adult content to filter through as well. So just things to consider there. But real-time and news, Grok's definitely the place to be. I like it in my car. When I'm driving, just ask for a news update and it'll do a good job of that. Images, video, and voice. I think Google's winning here. I think this is probably the one place that Google's really winning. Nano Banana, Google's VEO 3.1. They've done a pretty good job on all of the things, videos, image, and voice. All of them have functions. I tell folks that like none of these are really great. They're still learning their way through it. I mean, Nano Banana is the best probably for like creative community type stuff. Midjourney's pretty good, which isn't related to any of these. I don't actually know. ChatGPT has a good voice feature, which I think is probably the best one there. I think Claude's falling behind in this topic entirely. I think they're focused on being productivity and not image, video, voice. They do have a design feature, which is kind of cool, where they can lay stuff out. I had it design a podcast studio for me the other day, or a live streaming studio, where it like mapped out everything, did all the research, drew me a physical diagram, like to scale of where the cameras and lights and cords and everything need to go. A lot of really cool stuff there. So just something to note. Last little bit here, guys, on this topic. I think there's interesting, it's not really a plot twist, but it's a where's the world headed and what should you pay for moment here. And so ChatGPT currently has a 77% share. There's like percent share. That's like total domination, right? On the consumer side. On the enterprise side, you've got Anthropic at 40, OpenAI at 27, and Google at 21. And so OpenAI was 50% 2 years ago. And so you're seeing Anthropic and Google in particular, Google obviously because they're going to leverage their distribution model, but Anthropic's really kicking into that enterprise side. They're really starting to get closer and closer into building out. When I say enterprise, I mean the small business users, the people that are building with it, right? And because Anthropic is crushing it with code, and people like you and I are figuring out if we can use code to build features and tools for our business, what a great place to be. So we're seeing changes there. We're going to keep our finger on this one because this one's moving a million miles an hour and who knows where it goes. I still think that OpenAI is winning at the highest level. But if it were me, as I have said numerous times, if I have $20 to spend a month, I'm buying Claude Pro. That's it. What I do and what I would probably recommend is spend $40 a month and get ChatGPT Plus and Claude Pro. That's what I would spend my money on. So you heard it here. got $20 a month, go buy Claude Pro, use it, go back and watch a video or two of mine where I've showed you how to use it. Do some training through some of these schools and sources that exist, and get coded up on that, because man, it is wildly cool, super powerful. So yeah, I think as we look at, this halfway through the year 2026, evaluating all these models, a couple thoughts. One, at the top, the frontier models, the power and complexity, they're pretty close. I mean, it's rounding errors, right? And it flips monthly. And so the slogan piece that we came up with here is stop tribal loyalty and rent, don't marry. So we don't know who's going to win, right? And they're all chasing that. Right now, I love that because they're competing against each other. Every month, it feels like a new version comes out or a new feature comes out that's pushing. I think that the leaderboards that we're seeing right now are probably more like weather reports than gospel. So they are useful. But it's really about how it all fits together. And I think when it comes to best, there's only a couple of use cases that I really think are best. I think that Claude is the best at coding. Grok is the best at news. Stay with your Office suite that you have. If you're doing a ton of cited research, Perplexity is really great. And ChatGPT is fine for everyday use. But hopefully this is helpful. I know it was a relatively short episode, but I just wanted to get it in front of you guys with all the lessons I've been tracking and following. I am actually getting ready to leave to go to the airport to fly to Amsterdam. I'm going over there, taking my family over there to a Magic the Gathering convention and to see Amsterdam and Belgium. So we're really excited about it. I am literally unplugging here and heading out the door, packed and ready to go. So excited for that. Next week, we're going to have a best of episode. I've never done one of these before, but I have given my producer, Josh, some context and feedback, and we're going to clip up some of the best bits we've ever had on this show over the first 30-ish weeks. And we're going to pull a lot together into a best of episode because I'm still going to be overseas. And so I'll be back with you guys live in 2 weeks. Hopefully you really enjoy my best of episode next week. And thank you all for continuing to listen and for supporting the show. Cheers.